Okay, now on to dividing in standard form. Let's get into it. So a couple of my turn, your turns, and some questions you can try at the end again. So we've got this question here, 9 times by 10 to the power of 8, and we're dividing by 3 times by 10 to the power of negative 2. Just to help us think about it, I would like to rewrite this in a slightly different way. So we're going to write 9 times by 10 to the power of 8. And if you're dividing by this, we can write it as dividing by 3 times by 10 to the power of negative 2. To be honest, it doesn't really make a lot of difference. I just think it helps us see what is going on exactly with this here. So we've kind of got two parts going on. We've got this 9 divided by 3 going on because this line here means to divide. So we're doing 9 divided by 3 to begin with. So kind of like with timesing, you're considering your number parts. 9 divided by 3 is just equal to 3. And we're timesing this by, and then you go and consider your, let's use a slightly different color, which is a nice light color. We consider our indice parts. We go and do 10 to the power of 8, and we are dividing by 10 to the power of negative 2. So very similar to multiplying, but this time you just go and divide your number parts. Okay, 9 divided by 3 is 3, and then 10 to the power of 8 divided by 10 to the minus 2. Okay, just write it down, 10 to the 8 divided by 10 to the minus 2. If you're dividing indices with the same base, we've got this base here being 10, you subtract the powers. So you go and do 8 take away negative 2. 8 take away negative 2 means 8 plus 2, so you get 10 to the power of 10, because it becomes 8 plus 2. So we get times by 10 to the power of 10. So I'm not going to rewrite it like this for all of them now, but basically when you divide numbers in standard form, you divide your number parts. 9 divided by 3 is 3, 10 to the 8 divided by 10 to the minus 2 is 10 to the power of 10, okay? And that is how we do this, okay? There we go, brilliant. So you can now go and try the your turn, and we'll go through this now. Just make sure, again, it's really important because we want to be writing our answers for all of these into standard form. Again, your number here must be between 1 and 10, which it is, and then this must be times by 10, which it is, and that must be an integer, which it is, which is really, really good. Okay, brilliant. The your turn. So give this one a go, and let's go through it now. So we're going to be doing 10 divided by 5, and then we're going to be doing 10 to the power of 4 divided by 10 to the power of 7. Okay, so that's going to be good. So what is 10 divided by 5? 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2. And we're timesing again by 10 to the 4 divided by 10 to the 7. Okay, it's going to be timesing by 10. And then dividing indices with the same base, you can just go and do 4, take away 7, which is equal to negative 3. Okay, because 4 take 7 equals to negative 3. There we go. Brilliant. So that is your answer for your term. Okay, you just go and divide your number parts. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 10 to the 4 divided by 10 to the 7. It's taking away the powers because you're now dividing, not timesing. 4 take 7 is negative 3. Brilliant. And check between 1 and 10. Yes, it is. We are all good to go. Okay, these ones here are a little bit trickier because you'll see that there's a slight difference with our final answer. So let's go through this one, okay? But again, you begin by looking at your number parts. We're going to do 1.2, and we are dividing by 5, and then you go and do 10 to the power of 5 divided by 10 to the power of 3. So let's just go and look at this now. So the first part, 1.2 divided by 5. If you can't think of how to do this, go and use a bit of bus stop. So how many 5s go into 1.2? 5s into 1 you can't do. Carry that 1, bring up your point, and then 5s into 12. Go 2 times, and then you've got an extra 0 here that you can use, and you had a 2 left over. 5 into 20 goes 4 times. So 1.2 divided by 5 is equal to 0.24. So that's good. So our first bit's going to be 0.24, and we're timesing by 10 to the 5 divided by 10 to the 3. Take away the powers. 5 take away 3 is 2. So timesing by 10 to the power of 2. Now, check here, your first number is not between 1 and 10, and it needs to be if it's written into standard form. So we've got to go and manipulate this a little bit. To get 0.24 to become between 1 and 10, we can go and times this by 10, which means, okay, like on the previous video, you have to go and do the opposite thing now. So we're now timesing the first number by 10, which means I've got to go and divide my indice part by 10, or I can write it as 10 to the power of 1 to help us think about it. Okay, so 0.24 times by 10 is equal to 2.4. 10 squared divided by 10 to the 1, take away the powers, 2 take away 1 is equal to 1, so 10 to the power of 1, which you could just go and write as 10. And that is your answer. So this thing here and this, they mean exactly the same thing. It is just this one here is written in standard form because your first number is between 1 and 10, which is really, really important. Again, right, if this bit here, where we're timesing by 10 on this side and dividing by 10, people sometimes ask it in my classes, well, don't you do the same thing to both sides? Not in this case. Okay, let's think of another example again. Like on the previous video, we looked at the example where we had 20, and we times it by 5, and we saw that's equal to 100. If I went and now divided this 20 by a 10 and times this 5 by a 10, so doing the opposite thing, I should get the same result. So 20 divided by 10 is equal to 2. 5 times by 10 is equal to 50. You can see you get exactly the same thing. That is why if you do one thing to one number, you do the opposite to the other number to keep the result the same. So it's always a good thing to think of a really simple example to help make sense of what is going on. That's always a good thing to do. Okay, brilliant. So you can now try the your turn, and then we'll go through it, and then there's going to be 3 questions afterwards that you can try, and that's going to be it for this video. So let's begin. The first one, we've got 3 times by 10 to the 5, and we are dividing again by 12. So your number part's there, and then we can go and consider our indice part. So 10 to the 5 dividing by 10 squared, and let's begin. The first part, we're doing 3 divided by 12. So what is 3 divided by 12? Okay, well, we go and divide by 3 and divide by 3. That's the same thing as 1 over 4, a quarter, which is equal to 0.25. So the first part is going to be 0.25, and we're timesing by 10 to the 5 divided by 10 squared. Take away the powers, 5 take away 2 is 3, so 10 to the power of 3. But again, you've got an issue here. This number must be between 1 and 10, but not including 10, which it isn't. So we've got to go manipulate this again by, first of all, timesing this left-hand side by 10, and then dividing this 10 cubed by 10, or 10 to the power of 1 means the same thing. 0.25 times by 10 is equal to 2.5, and we're timesing 10 cubed divided by 10 to the 1, take away the powers, 3 take away 1 is 10 to the power of 2, and that is your answer. Okay, if you got that, then fantastic. That is really, really good. Okay, fantastic. So now 3 questions that you can just try. So you can pause the video, give these a go, and fast forward to the end to look at the answers, or you can work through these with me. Either is all good. Okay, the first one. So again, they're all dividing, and we're going to write all of them into standard form. So we've got 8 divided by 2 to begin with is our number part, and then we've got 10 to the 5, and we're dividing by 10 cubed. So this one, quite straightforward, because we're just doing 8 divided by 2 is equal to 4. We're timesing by 10 to the 5 divided by 10 cubed, take away the powers, 5 take away 2 is equal to 10 to the power of 2, 10 squared. So that is your answer for the first one. Good, there we go. The second one, again, your number parts. What am I doing over here? So pen. Your number parts are 1.2, and we are dividing by 3, so we're going to get a decimal, which is fine. We can deal with that. And then we've got a 10 to the 4 dividing by 10 to the 8, and let's go through this one. So 1.2 divided by 3, again, if you can't think of how to do this, bit of bus stop, so how many 3's go into 1.2? 3's into 1 you can't do, so then carry that 1, bring up your decimal point. 3's into 12 go exactly 4 times, so 0.4. So we get 0.4. We're timesing by 10 to the 4 divided by 10 to the 8. 4 take away 8 is equal to negative 4, so times by 10 to the power of negative 4. But there's an issue here because this number is not between 1 and 10, and it must be. So how can we get this to be between 1 and 10? We can times this 0.4 by 10, times it by 10, which means to keep your number the same, I've got to go and divide this by 10 to the power of 1. Okay? So that means, again, the same thing as just dividing by 10. 0.4 times by 10 is equal to 4, and then we're timesing by, we've got 10 to the 4 divided by 10 to the 1. You're taking away the powers, so you're doing negative 4. You're doing negative 4, take away 1, which is equal to negative 5. So timesing it by 10 to the power of negative 5, which is really, really good. Okay, this is my answer, 4 by 10 to the minus 5. This is good because this number is between 1 and 10, which is a must to write something in standard form. Okay, brilliant. Last but not least, we've got this. So again, 6.4, and again, we are dividing by 8, and then our number part is going to be 10 to the power of minus 3 divided by 10 to the power of minus 8. Just a bit more awkward with our numbers, but nothing that we can't handle. So 6.4 divided by 8. Again, if you can't think of how to do this, a bit of bus stop. So how many 8s go into 6.4? Well, 8 into 6 you can't do, so carry that 6, bring up your decimal points. 8 into 64 goes exactly 8 times. So 0.8 is your answer there. So it's going to be 0.8 for the blue part. We're timesing by 10 to the minus 3 divided by 10 to the minus 8. So it's going to be times by 10. You've got to take away the powers. So you've got to go and do negative 3, take away negative 8. This becomes negative 3 plus 8, and negative 3 plus 8 is equal to positive 5. So times by 10 to the power of 5. That is your answer. Brilliant. And there we go. So that is dividing in standard form. Again, if you need to go through anything, if I went through that a bit too quickly, you can always rewind and put any comments down below. But hopefully that was useful. Oh, no, right. Sorry. Right. Luckily, I checked my answer there. I was going too quickly for my own good. Right. There is an issue here, isn't there? Because this number is not between 1 and 10. Right, so let's go and change that again. Almost made a calamitous mistake. So let's go and times this side again by 10 and divide this side by 10. That's why you've always got to be really, really alert. Okay, you've got to be making any silly mistakes. 0.8 times by 10 is going to give you that 8, which is between 1 and 10. We're timesing it by 10, and then you're doing 5 divided by 10 to the power of 1. Okay, so 5 take away 1 is 4. So timesing it by 10 to the power of 4. Okay, there we go. Right, that is my answer. Okay, good. I think it's good actually for you to see. Sometimes, right, we do make mistakes, but if we check our working, then hopefully we can alleviate as many mistakes as possible. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for watching. Brilliant.